Welcome to session 8 of God is Merciful, Jonah chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But as morning dawned the next day, God prepared a worm, and it so damaged the plant that it withered. And it happened when the sun arose that God prepared a vehement east wind, and the sun beat on Jonah's head so that he grew faint. Then he wished death for himself and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." Then God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" And he said, "It is right for me to be angry, even to death." But the Lord said, "You have pity on the plant for which you have not labored nor made it grow, which came up in a night and perished in a night. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city in which are more than 120,000 persons who cannot discern between their right hand and their left, and much livestock?" Don't let self-righteousness be the hill you die on. Stubborn. That's the word for Jonah's actions. Jonah was foolish enough to believe he could outrun God's call, got corrected, almost died, and had to be rescued. And here he is thinking, or he has the audacity to still think, that he knows better than God. Jonah is still throwing a grown-up temper tantrum, but I want you to pay close attention to God's response as we read through this final piece of the book of Jonah. Verse 7. But as morning dawned the next day, God prepared a worm, and it so damaged the plant that it withered. Jonah, still on his hill of self-righteousness, and he was, when we left our last session, he was showing God gratitude for God causing the gourd to grow and providing extra shade for him. But now the beloved plant has died. Verse 8. And it happened when the sun arose that God prepared a vehement east wind, and the sun beat on Jonah's head so that he grew faint. Then he wished death for himself and said, "Is it better for me to die than to live? It is better for me to die than to live. It is better for me to die than to live." Just really, let's go back and say that one more time. It is better for me to die than to live. Just remember this. Daylight gives sight to what occurred in darkness. When the sun came up, God sent an east wind toward Jonah, and the sun was wearing his head out. Jonah couldn't stand it. So again, he was wishing for his death. Perhaps God was trying to teach a lesson on the fragility of life by reminding Jonah of who is really all-seeing. Or it could even be that Jonah is still wrestling with pride and wants to be comforted in his feelings, but all he keeps getting met with is discomfort. Just know this: we cannot manipulate God into doing what we want him to do. When we're dealing with the spirit of manipulation or someone who has manipulative behaviors, not we don't have to call it a spirit. We can just say they're dealing with manipulation. Same thing, no matter how you word it. They throw out these extreme statements in those spaces to get a response from you to get you to cave in to what they're requesting. It is better for me to die than to live. A grown-up temper tantrum. But God, he calls Jonah's bluff. because out here on his heel of self-righteousness, he almost faced death. But let's keep reading. Then God said to Jonah, verse 9, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" And he said, "It is right for me to be angry, even to death." Ooh. God questions Jonah's anger here again because now he's angry about the plant dying. This time, Jonah answers. Jonah, in all of his pride and self-righteousness, feels justified, so much so that he is willing to take it with him to the grave. Let that sink in. Over a plant? You are angry over a plant? The fact that it died means that you're worthy of death. Your death is meaningful for the purpose of this plant. Consider the heart. Verse 10, but the Lord said, "You have had pity on the plant which you have not labored, nor made it grow, which came up in a night and perished in a night." The Lord will use anything to teach us his way. God called Jonah out for having pity toward a plant, but not the people of Nineveh. Why is this so pivotal? The Lord was showing Jonah and us that it's interesting how one can have pity on things they did not create or make grow that was only here for a moment of time. Jonah didn't plant the gourd, nor did he water it so that it would grow. God caused it to grow. Yet this is what Jonah is now angry at God about. Jonah had more compassion for a plant that was there for a matter of time than he did for an entire group of people. Think about that. God is finding it interesting that he's so consumed about this short life of this plant than he is for the things that please God's heart. Verse 11, and should I not pity Nineveh, that great city in which are more than 120,000 persons who cannot discern between their right hand and their left, and much livestock? Ooh, I love how God concludes Jonah's story here. And should I not pity Nineveh? The book of Jonah ends with an open-ended question. In motivational interviewing, this is the preferred type of question, as it allows one to reflect before answering and then expand on their answers as they consider their own readiness for change. Here, God isn't demanding an answer from Jonah. What God did instead was to remind Jonah that man was not equal to God's way. If we do just as God was encouraging Jonah to do, then we too will check our hearts. And by doing so, we would heed the moments where we are in direct misalignment with the heart of God. God is merciful. Jonah, in his familiarity and history, see 2 Kings chapter 14, verse 25, with God, assumed that he and God were on the same level. He wanted to dictate who received God's mercy and who didn't. Jonah felt he had enough history with God to push his own authority and rulership. Yet he found himself in full disobedience and direct opposition to God. Jonah questioned God's move in such a way that alluded to him thinking he knew better than God. And it is my belief that the Lord left Jonah's story open-ended as a lesson to all of us. Where have you found yourself in direct conflict with the character of God? Reflect on that and join me back here for the last two sessions of God is Merciful. See you soon. Discussion questions. What have you placed above God's most beloved creation, mankind? How does what you value speak to your understanding of God and his plans for creation? Exodus 20, verse 3 says, "You shall have no other gods before me." What gods did Jonah place before God according to what is found in Jonah 4? In the overview, we use an analogy of a judge. How do you think a judge would respond if a bailiff went rogue and questioned every decision the judge made to pardon convicted criminals? How does this provide insight into how God could move if he wanted to? See 2 Kings chapter 14, verse 25. How does this verse impact how you see Jonah? Till next time.